Welcome back. If you've ever had to manage a Linux server, you know how important security is. But let's be real, firewalls can be a major headache. So today, we're going to demystify Firewalld, a tool that was literally designed to be the friendly, easy-to-understand security guard for your entire system. So what even is a firewall? The best way to think about it is as a digital security guard standing right at the front door of your server. It's its job to check out all the network traffic trying to get in or out. And based on a set of rules, it decides who gets in and who gets turned away. It's really that simple. Okay, I can already hear you thinking, sure, that sounds simple, but aren't firewalls just incredibly complicated? And you know what? For a long time, you were absolutely right. For years, people had to use tools like IP tables, and honestly, the learning curve was so steep it scared a lot of folks away. But that frustration is the exact reason Firewalld was born. And this quote from an expert really says it all. Its main purpose isn't to be complicated or powerful, it's just to make my life easy. The whole point was to take that old, confusing process and make it logical, organized, and way more straightforward. And this right here shows you the biggest upgrades Firewalld brought to the party. First off, yes, it's way more beginner-friendly. It can also make changes on the fly, dynamically, without kicking everyone off your server. But the real game changer, the most important idea here, is this concept it introduced called zones. It completely changes how you think about organizing your security rules. So to really master Firewalld, you don't need to go memorize a textbook of commands. Nope. You just need to get a handle on 3 core concepts. Seriously, just 3. Think of these as the fundamental building blocks for everything else you're going to do. And here they are. It's all about zones, which tell your server how much to trust a network. Then you've got services, which are just easy, human-friendly names for your rules. And finally, ports, which are the actual digital doors that those services use to talk to the outside world. All right, let's start with zones. A zone is just a collection of rules that you apply based on where your server is and how much you trust that network. So for instance, the rules you'd want on your super secure private network at the office are going to be completely different from the rules you'd want when you're connected to the public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop. Zones lets you switch between those rule sets with one simple command. This is just a brilliant analogy for it. Think about all the network traffic hitting your server as a massive crowd of people trying to get into an airport. Instead of one giant chaotic line, the airport creates order by splitting people up into different gates for different flights. Well, Firewalld does the exact same thing with its traffic, using zones to keep everything tidy and secure. Okay, next up, services. And this feature right here is probably the best example of that make my life easy philosophy. Instead of making you remember that websites use port 80 and a secure connection uses port 22, Firewalld just gives you these simple pre-made names like HTTP and SSH. And this is why it's such a game changer. You stop having to think about random port numbers, and you start thinking about what you're actually trying to do. I need to allow SSH access. Well, then you just add the SSH service. It's so much more intuitive, and you're way less likely to make a typo or a mistake. All right, that's enough theory for now. Let's get our hands dirty and see how this all comes together in a super common, real-world situation, firing up a new web server and actually letting people connect to it from the internet. We're just going to follow these 4 basic steps. Now, we'll assume the web server itself is already installed and running. Our job is just to poke the right holes in the firewall to let all that web traffic through. So, you might think, okay, I want to allow web traffic. I'll just run this command, firewall-cmd-add service equals HTTP. And that seems easy enough, right? But hold on, there's a huge catch here. If you only run that command and then you reboot your server, poof, that rule you just added is completely gone. So, why did that happen? It happens because Firewalld actually keeps 2 different sets of rules, the runtime configuration and the permanent one. When you run a command by itself, you're only changing the runtime rules. It works right now, but it's totally temporary. To make a change that actually sticks around after a reboot, you have to specifically save it to the permanent configuration. And that brings us to the most critical thing to remember. It's a 2-step process. First, you add the rule to your saved configuration by adding the -permanent flag. So the command is firewall-cmd-permanent-add service equals HTTP. But that doesn't make it active yet. For that, you have to do step 2. Tell the firewall to reload its rules with firewall-cmd-reload. That second command is what takes your saved changes and applies them to the live running firewall. Whew, okay, we've gone over a lot.
But the good news is, it all boils down to just a few essential commands. These are going to be your new go-to toolkit for handling your server security with confidence.
And this is basically it. With just these 4 commands, you can handle 99% of what you'll ever need to do. You can see what your current rules are, you can permanently add or remove a service, and, most importantly, you can apply those changes. This right here is your foundation. So there you have it. We've gone from the messy, confusing world of old-school firewalls to a simple, really powerful system built on zones and services. You've got the tools now. You can confidently control exactly who and what gets access to your server. So the only question left is, what are you going to build and secure with it?